Introducing Sergeant H. Buck Wall. Sergeant H. Buck Wall was a staff sergeant in the Air Force and was based at Keflavik Airport Base in Iceland. He was part of the Lackland AFB 324th Training Squadron. He was mostly there training soldiers for Arctic living in case of a need for invasion into Arctic weather. He would serve during the time of the Cold War, which was a war of mostly threats, teasing, and words, mostly from the USSR and the United States of America. He was in active duty from 1954 to 1958, and he was in the reserve from 1958 to 1962. Overall, he served an 8-year time period. And now for his early life.
Sergeant Buckwall's early life consisted of everything normal. Buckwall grew up in a wealthy suburb of Chicago, playing baseball and going to school. One of Buckwall's early successes was his own baseball team. Him and a few other kids from their school made their own baseball team, which ended up being ranked as one of the best in Chicago very quickly. It wasn't until after high school when Buckwall noticed most of his friends were leaving to join the Army. This eventually encouraged him to join as well.
I was born during the Great Depression, 1934, and at that time the country was pretty poor. Nobody had any money, and so I grew up basically from birth to about 10 years old in the city of Chicago. And after the war, after World War II, we moved out to the suburbs. So it was a great place to grow up because you could fish in the creek and ice skate in the wintertime. It was a really terrific way to go. I really enjoyed it compared to the city. The city was kind of grungy. But my friends in high school actually enlisted right after high school. I went to Korea. And some of them didn't come back, and a lot of them came back with a lot of wounds. I decided to join the Air Force instead of the Army. So, at any rate,
Buckwall went to a basic training designed to transform recruits like himself into highly motivated airmen possessing warrior attitudes and knowledge. In reality, all he did was march and make friends for 11 weeks, but really, he learned about the seriousness of the military and the responsibilities he gains by enlisting.
And we marched, and we went on bivouac, and we slept in tents and all kinds of good stuff. We shot empty rifles, click, 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 and a lot of boring stuff, picking up cigarette butts and marching. And so, when I got out of basic training, I told them I wanted to be an airplane mechanic. And they said, sorry, you're going to be a tactical instructor. And this is the way the service works. Don't count on anything. When I was overseas, they actually asked us where we wanted to go from our overseas billet. And we gave them. And they sent me to a place that was furthest away from any of my choices. So, 3 flights, 3 sets of 60 guys through basic training. And actually I asked for a transfer. I was getting tired of it. And they really said, okay, we'll find something for you. Well, what they did is they shipped me to Iceland.
Buck described to us one of his memories when he was in the U.S. headquarters, and he told us that on one day their radar detected a Russian jet flying over the U.S. This was very scary because they didn't know if the Russians were going to bomb them or what their intent was, so the U.S. flew out the A-4 jets and forced them to turn around. This was a very significant moment in time because if the Russians bombed the U.S., then war between the two superpowers will happen again.
The reason for the base was it was on a straight line from Moscow to New York. And the government put up many of these sites and called them DEW lines. The DEW is Defense Early Warning System. And what they did is put us in that situation because the Russians were teasing us at the time. It wasn't very funny, and but they did try. The base I was on, I was not a pilot, I wasn't in combat, and I worked in the headquarters building, but I could see the flight line. And one day, the radar told us that there was a Russian jet coming in, and our A4s, jets, had to go up and tell them to come down or go back. And that was the reason we were there, to keep the Russians from flying over us to the U.S. I don't know if they really intended to, they were just testing, but they always brought the ships down. But it was, when it snowed, the wind was about 100 miles an hour, so sideways. So they tied a rope from my barracks to the chow hall, so we didn't get blown away. I spent a lot of time in the chow hall. It's a very good place. First guy you want to know is the chef.
Yeah.
Call him the chef.
Yes. So, do you recall like your first days in your service, and what was that like experiencing? Like,
Well, we rode from Chicago to San Antonio on a train. It took maybe 24 hours on the train. And it was uneventful as far as I can remember. But when we got there at the train station in San Antonio, we were herded into a big area, and we started training right away. Standing in ranks, standing at attention, mostly at attention. You don't know what it's like when you're standing in the heat of San Antonio at attention and your nose itches and you can't stretch it. So that was the fun part. But after meeting us at the train station, there was always, it seemed to me that the tech instructor that met us there was a little abrasive. I never used that tactic at all. But maybe I should have, but I didn't. But he was a short guy, short and stocky. And I never thought, I was, like you guys, I was 160 pounds. No, it was 175, yeah. And nobody walked up to me and said that to me. And he was short, so I looked down at him and said, okay. And we got along fine. But after that, we were brought to the barracks, marched to the barracks as sloppily as we could, I guess, and given a bunk. And then we started to get to know each other, all 60 guys. Well, you don't know all 60 guys. It's like you're in school. You meet some, you say hi to others, and you get close to some and you don't with others. But it becomes once you've marched with them for 11 weeks, then you pretty well know everybody. And you become a team.
So, like throughout everything, what was your most memorable experience during Cold War?
The most memorable, I think, was meeting a guy who became my friend. I was being shipped overseas, and I had to wait in Manhattan Beach, New York, in the barracks. And one morning I got up and my overcoat was gone. And it's cold in New York. And so I said, well, somebody stole it. So I looked around in all the other cubicles and I found it. Put my name on it. Your name is on everything, by the way. It's stamped on your underwear, your socks, shirts, everything. And so you don't lose it, along with your serial number. Serial number is very important. You never forget it. And you're probably familiar with some of these guys that stand on the corner with the sign that says veteran. Ask him for the serial number. If he is a veteran, he'll tell you. That's one good way to find out if he really is. At any rate, so I found my overcoat. So I waited for the guy to come back. He wasn't there. I didn't just take it and bring it back. I waited for him. Now he was a little Irishman, come stomping in there. I said, what do you mean still in my overcoat? He says, well, it was hanging there. And I really don't remember anything else about it, but we became great friends. We visited each other. He became a crew chief on the C-119, and his story was it was at the time that they were having trouble in the South, and 101st Airborne was being flown in C-119s down to quell the Governor Warren. The riots down there. And so the Airborne teased him enough that he wasn't jumping. He had a chute on, he had to have a chute on. So he just hooked up and jumped out. Lost all his stripes. but it was fun, it was fun.
Overall, we would like to thank Sergeant H. Buck Wall for his service for the people of the United States of America and for this great nation. During his time of service, he received the Air Force Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Tactical Instructor Ribbon, the Longevity Ribbon, the Overseas Service Ribbon, and the Cold War Commemorative Ribbon. Thank you, Sergeant H. Buck Wall, for your service to this country and for donating 8 years of your life to the Air Force, and for sharing your story with us.